POSTCAST, your instant game reaction for the Atlanta Hawks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yo, appreciate everybody for coming through and showing some love. You are watching none other than, wow, what is this? Episode 57 of this season. Of course it is. Game number 57 of the Locked On Hawks postcast. Deshaun Tate with you guys for the night. And I tell you what a way to bounce back from the horrifying ending to what would be considered, even though it's not the considered first half of the regular season after a loss to the Charlotte Hornets. Right, you bounce back, coming back, getting some replenishment, getting some rejuvenation a little bit after the break, and some much needed rest for this team who's been spending quite some time on the road, and obviously now going back on the road, which probably isn't the worst thing in the world for the Atlanta Hawks. We'll tell you why here just in a second, because we know that with so many games left at Stave Arena, hasn't really been much home cooking there. Deshaun Tate again with you guys. Appreciate everybody for coming through, showing some love. I should probably let you know first that this episode of the Locked On Hawks postcast is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Have you had your cake and drink it too? Birthday cake flavor is back. No fork needed. Vanilla-y, cake-y flavored, caffeine kick, and no sugar. It's party time. Order now at 5hourenergy.com or Amazon. 117-107 win for the Atlanta Hawks. Check mark, check the box, add a number to the left side of the result column where they don't show any brotherly love to the Philadelphia 76ers. Definitely want to get a little bit of interaction from you guys, see what you guys kind of thought about tonight's game. I thought that there was a couple things, a couple keys that kind of stuck out to me like a sore thumb. Obviously, when you have a situation where you don't have Joel Embiid that is going to be playing, as well as Paul George, two of their more prolific players, stars, if you will, I guess kind of that role is being kind of taken over by one Tyrese Maxey, a guy who's sixth in the league at in scoring, 29 points per game. The Atlanta Hawks, even albeit by 1 point, held him under his average, also shooting 47% from the field, 4 rebounds, 6 assists. First in the league in minutes played and second in steals. Always an interesting matchup when we have a chance to see he and Dyson Daniels go at it, because they don't shy away from the smoke. They want all the smoke. They want all the energy that comes along with it. Maxey is second in steals in the league. Dyson is third in the league in steals, and both of those guys get after it on both sides of the ball, especially if you're Maxey, probably the biggest impact player, I don't know if the word is impact player, but certainly right up in that conversation amongst taking the biggest jump from a year ago and the previous years prior to it to this year. And the Hawks doing what they needed to do in order to, get the win. I thought that in order for them to win, they would have to limit the opposition from the guards and kind of keep the two specifically starters, VJ Edgecombe and Tyrese Maxey, under 40, if there's a such thing, a possibility. VJ ended up with a little bit more than I probably expected. I thought the Hawks could have probably played a little bit better defense on him. They did not, but it wasn't the worst job in the world. I think that the Hawks, for the most part, not only played defense well on him, played defense well in general. Maxey is just a straight bucket with speed that's unmatched. And the Hawks actually did a pretty good job as a whole. I mean, I don't really feel too much like this game was really in question very much, if I'm just being honest. I think the Hawks were, for the most part, kind of in control out the gate, maybe with the exception of the first 3, 4, 5 minutes of the game. But for the most part, I think that they went ahead and just kind of took the lead and didn't really make me feel like they were going to give it up anytime soon. Did they keep the foot on the gas pedal the way that I would have wanted them to? And I know everybody wants, that signature blowout win, but a win is a win, as Tanisha says all the time, is a win. And so no matter whether you get it by 1 or you get it by 100, it's always a beautiful thing, especially after Charlotte's loss tonight to Houston. I think that the Atlanta Hawks now jump the Charlotte Hornets. So no pun intended from the fight a couple weeks ago. So that being said, Quentin Grimes was that other piece that I thought could have really been an asset to Philadelphia to help them get over the hump, as you probably know. That kind of being the thorn in the Atlanta Hawks side. He's averaging somewhere around 26 points per game. Yes, we're talking about the same Quentin Grimes. I think on tonight he might have had, what did Quentin Grimes have? I believe about 14 points or somewhere right up in that range. Yeah, 14 points, 5 for 9, shooting 50% from three. Being able to hold a guy, while it might seem like, wow, Quentin Grimes with a pretty significant number into double digits. 14, I think, is a decent number. It's respectable if you're the Atlanta Hawks defense, but for a guy that's averaging against the Hawks a whole 12 more points than that, I think that they'll be willing to live with that. Of course, Philadelphia entering this game, losing its 3 of its last 4 games, certainly helps. And speaking of 3 of the last 4, the Atlanta Hawks going to play 3 games in the next 4 days, although they do have the 4th easiest schedule remaining in the NBA. So I think that that'll help them out a lot. Got a lot of the difficulty games out of the way on the front end, but I do think that that would be a little bit poor decision making for the Atlanta Hawks to pay too much attention to that, because once you do that, you start kind of not reading, start reading the names on the front of the jerseys, and that doesn't necessarily always bode well for the Atlanta Hawks. So 26 games left remaining, I guess 25 now left remaining for the Atlanta Hawks. And, I also thought that they needed to do a good job at stretching out the front line, the opposing team's front line defenders, especially guys like Jalen Johnson and Onyeka Okongwu from 3. And I thought this game could have definitely been a lot worse. We saw what we saw from Jalen Johnson. That's the obvious, right? That we, blessed to be able to get the consistency and persistency from him that we're able to get. But Onyeka Okongwu, just 8 points, 0 for 3 from 3. I thought that they really need, I thought that was something that they were ultimately going to really end up needing, was his 3-point shooting, because when you don't have Embiid, who's one of the better bigs, I want to call him the best. We know about the injury statuses. Me personally, I feel like he's done, but that's neither here nor there. When you do have him out of the lineup and you're playing guys like Drummond and, you're playing guys like Barlow, who you're overly familiar with because he used to be in an Atlanta Hawks uniform, 365 days ago, if even that long. We know the defenders or the bruisers, especially talking about Drummond, that they can be. But I really thought that it would be really crucial and pivotal for this team to be able to hit its threes from the outside, stretching out the defense, because it did appear in some ways, only in some, that the Philadelphia 76ers would have the size advantage. Maybe not the quickness advantage, because I do think that the Atlanta Hawks had a very good balanced attack between getting up and down in transition. We'll talk about some of those numbers, but also did well in the rebounds department, where they out-rebounded Philadelphia by 4, 50-46. Also got out in transition, 25-19. They had the edge there. Points in the paint scoring. How about that one? I think that was ultimately like the I don't know, what does everybody like to say? Nail in the coffin. Just the exclamation point, if you will, that they put on the game was being able to outscore, doing what you're supposed to do. We're just being really transparent about it, outscoring the front line when you have Jalen Johnson or Onyeka Okongwu in there. But I thought that someone else, I really believe, did themselves a fine job. And if you would have told me that he would outscore Onyeka Okongwu, I probably would have asked you, why didn't you invite me to the bar on that night? But nonetheless, whenever you have, Jock Landale that is outscoring Onyeka Okongwu, not only, excuse me, from the field and in total points, but even from 3, then I think that says something about the ability or the outlook or the direction of which I believe that the Atlanta Hawks are trying to go with shooting the 3. And they didn't shoot it particularly well in the game either. Obviously, being a team that shot 31% tonight from 3, so they didn't shoot it exceptionally well, nor did they from the free throw line under 80%, and far too many turnovers for my liking, with 14 of them, and still able to get a win. I thought that actually says something about this team The ball protection does need to be tightened up a little bit. I would have figured that it would be when you have Jalen Johnson, who's able to run the show the way he does as a point forward. When you have Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who is just, I know you guys hear me say it all the time, but just reminds me so much of not just the player, but also the role that DeJounte Murray played when he was in a Hawks uniform as well. The way, kind of like when Trey went down and all that kind of stuff, both of those guys kind of step in as plug and play. Maybe not your traditional or prototypical point guards or what have you, but certainly in position to be kind of like a by default or de facto point guard. Guys that won't necessarily that will help you win a game at the point guard position before they help you lose a game, if that makes any sense at all. Far more than game managers. But I thought that was something that was obviously really important for this team. And he didn't even have a great night. Some of the better players for the Atlanta Hawks, obviously not named Jalen Johnson, did not have fantastic nights. We talked about Onyeka Okongwu already, Nickeil Alexander-Walker. 4 for 11 from the field, 2 for 7 from 3, 14 points for him. Dyson Daniels stepping up a little bit more, finally bringing some offense around at the right time. Maybe not from a jump shooting standpoint, especially from the perimeter, but certainly getting downhill, some of those floaters, got a couple dunks, things of that nature. And by the way, as good of a job as the Atlanta Hawks did without Onyeka Okongwu having a fantastic night the way that he had been recently, I think that sometimes it's underappreciated how much Asa Newell brings you with his energy and just doing some of the little things in his very, very small window of opportunity in his young career that he's able to bring. Didn't see him on tonight. Muhammad Gay didn't give you very much at all, if anything. So, I think that it definitely does say something for them to be able to do what they did in terms of being able to bring some contribution and productivity to the team. We're going to go ahead and pay some bills on the other side real quick. Congrats to the Hawks. Now 8 consecutive wins against the Philadelphia 76ers. And there was obviously some importance of a strong start from this team. And the Atlanta Hawks now just kind of getting off to a really good start. Post the All-Star weekend. We'll be right back here with you guys after we pay a couple bills. Keep it locked right here, and we'll talk a little bit more about why or why not CJ McCollum just really appears to me to be exactly what this Atlanta Hawks team needs in more ways than one. Right here on the other side of the break. Welcome to the 5-Hour Energy Flavor Draft. We're looking at every prospect. That's right, every prospect to let you know which tasty flavors are the best and which just might be sleepers. This episode is brought to you. This episode of the Atlanta Hawks POSTCAST is brought to you by, of course, 5-Hour Energy. The board is set, the flavors are ready, and only one is going to take the top spot. 5-Hour Energy has a wide variety of flavors, a little bit of something for everybody. Even 5-Hour Energy shots give you a boost with 0 sugar and has a lot of upcoming flavor innovations planned. Which ones are they? I'll tell you here in a second. I'll tell you what, this 5-Hour Energy is one that will always seemingly bring you some of its traditional extra strength, grape, cherry, orange, berry, which is one of my personal favorites, and even newer flavors like sour apple, pink lemonade. I think I have one that I definitely want to keep in mind. I might have to pitch my little idea over to 5-Hour, that being a new blackberry option, if you will. Might need to see if we can get that in front of some people so they can go ahead and hook that up. Nonetheless, definitely want to let you guys know that there's some underrated flavors that may be out there, highlighting a sweet flavor like confetti craze, fruity rainbow, maybe even cotton candy, if that's even a possibility. So definitely want to see if there's some more options out there that any of you guys might be thinking would be something that would be really fun to see and new flavors to try. Maybe if they had something like that whole Coca-Cola thing where they have like all the different drinks, you could try them and mix them and do all that kind of stuff. That seems pretty cool. But in the way of a 5-hour energy. That sounds pretty dope to me. Find your new favorite flavor, that is a 5-hour energy shots, available online at 5hourenergy.com or perhaps on Amazon. This episode of the Locked On Hawks postcast is brought to you by Quo. New year, new systems. This is the time when a lot of us look at the messier parts of how we run our business and think there just has to be another way, a better way. And there is. Streamlining your communications is one of the quickest upgrades that you can make. That's why today's episode is brought to you by Quo, spelled Quo. The smarter way to run your business communications, because when your team is reachable, organized, and communicating in one place, you're not just working cleaner, you're creating more opportunities to connect with its customers. I love how simple Quo makes everything. Your whole team can call and text from one shared business number, so nothing ever gets missed. See the full conversation thread, which makes replies faster and more personal. It works right from your phone or your computer. You can even keep your existing telephone number and Quote's smart AI tools automatically log calls, summarizes conversations, and highlight the next step so details never slip through the cracks. It's no surprise that Quo is the #1 rated business phone system on G2, trusted by more, not less, but more than 90,000 businesses, from solo operators to growing teams. Make this year where no opportunity and no customer slips away. Try Quo for free. Plus, get 20% off your first 6 months when you go to quo.com/lockedonnba. That's QUO.com/lockedonnba. Quo, no missed calls, no missed customers. And this Locked On Hawks postcast is brought to this episode of the Locked On Hawks postcast is brought to you by Indeed. Workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you have to fill still sitting open. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, this is a job for sponsored jobs. Indeed, sponsored jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for: skills, experience, location. So you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. And here's a stat that says it all. In the minute I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed's sponsored jobs. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Less stress, less time, more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions, of course, do apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. Welcoming everybody back. Appreciate you guys again for joining me. Segment 2 rolling right around the corner for us. 117-107 win for the Atlanta Hawks over the Philadelphia 76ers. And as I teased it before the break, CJ McCollum may be being exactly what this team needed in more ways than one. And in which ways could that potentially be? Let's talk about it right now, but not first. Before we get to our player of the game, we know that it's just so easy to pick one Jalen Johnson each and every single night. Outside of him, I think that one player is none other than CJ McCollum.
This is the Locked On Player of the Game.
23 points, 6 for 13 from the field, 3 for 5 from three. Of course, you got 1 rebound in the mix in there. Of course, you got 5 assists. How about even this number right here? 2 steals for him, 1 block for one CJ McCollum. You kind of still get up there. Love to see what he's doing in an Atlanta Hawks uniform. And I think probably the thing that, that makes me feel the best about the new acquisition of one CJ McCollum and bringing him over, obviously in the trade for Trae Young, is the fact that that leadership, that the ideal leadership that people felt like you weren't necessarily getting out of Trae Young on what they feel like a leader could look like, that is CJ McCollum, a guy who's been, president of, the NBA, the NBPA Players Association, and a guy who is a leader on the floor, an extension of the coach, and even in the locker room, taking guys under his wing, teaching them little different, trinkets of the game and things like that, especially some of the younger players. I think is really, really huge for this team, and leading by example. He's a guy that was, a part of arguably or inarguably, or no, arguably, I don't know how much you can argue, but we know that Golden State at the time between Steph Curry and Klay Thompson was the best backcourt in the league for many, many years. But I think right behind them was probably Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum for quite some time, and then bouncing around to a couple different teams before he landed here with the Atlanta Hawks. Being someone that can bring so many different experiences over to the team and share so many different things with them and be that prototypical or traditional leader for this Atlanta Hawks team, which is something I really felt like it needed. When you need some guys to kind of grow up quickly and be taken up underneath the wing and be relatable in different ways off the floor, just being a guy that anybody in the locker room could come to and talk to, but even more so on the floor. Performances like what he did on tonight. And he could just be the person to say, oh, you know what, I've been this star player before in the NBA when I was in, when I was in Portland. And, this is the player that I still can show that I am. Why am I coming off the bench? And being one of the more prolific three-point shooters in the league, being one of the more consistent and persistent guards that we still have remaining in the league, not overly injured a lot or anything like that. I think that he's definitely leading by example from that standpoint as well. A big time help for this team, being the Atlanta Hawks, and not a bad defender either. Missed a couple free throws down the stretch on tonight, but didn't shoot it poorly on tonight. Really underappreciated player, I believe that he is, and still showing that he holds quite a bit of stock. So he is who I consider to be, outside of Jalen Johnson, of course, tonight's player of the game. Appreciate everybody for joining us. It's going to be really interesting coming up for the next couple. Of course, we know we got a back-to-back with those other ones right up the road, or down the road, if you will, coming up from South Beach at State Farm Arena on tomorrow, Friday at 7:30. And then, of course, we're talking about the Knicks on Sunday afternoon, early game. So make sure you keep your eyes and your ears open for that tip-off at 3:30. And who knows, after that, been hearing some rumblings that Trae Young's supposed to be coming back around in terms of hitting the floor again. So we got the Wizards coming up in 2 back-to-back games next Tuesday, next Thursday. I heard he's going to be maybe returning back within about a week. Who knows? Could be against the Atlanta Hawks. Appreciate everybody for joining us. Keep it locked right here. Of course, up next, my dude Brad Rowland, Locked On Hawks podcast. So you want to make sure that you stay up to date with all the news and highlights and notes around the NBA, including obviously the Atlanta Hawks. So keep it locked right here to him. Appreciate everybody for showing some love and coming through, supporting your boy. Locked On Hawks postcast. We'll be back with you guys in about 24 hours.